Most people believe bone loss after 60 is inevitable, that once bone density drops, the damage is done and all you can do is slow it down. But what if that belief itself is the real problem? What if aging isn't what truly weakens bones, and calcium alone was never the real solution? If you're over 60, this is where many people unknowingly go wrong, because bones don't stop rebuilding due to age. They stop rebuilding when the biological signals they receive quietly change. And here's the part most people never hear. Those signals can shift long before you feel pain, long before balance problems, and long before any diagnosis. So how would you even know if bone loss after 60 has already begun? According to newer research in bone metabolism and aging, bones are living tissue, constantly listening and responding to what's happening inside your body. They are not passive structures waiting to crumble. They are active systems making decisions every single day about whether to rebuild or break down. But here's the moment that should make you pause. When the wrong signals arrive, or when signals stop halfway, bones interpret that silence as a reason to thin out. This process often begins years before a bone scan ever shows bone density loss. Did you know many adults with normal calcium intake still lose bone strength year after year? So if the ingredients are there, why isn't bone strength improving? And more importantly, what instruction might your bones still be waiting for? If you're over 60, timing now matters more than quantity. Aging bones don't respond to vague support or habits repeated on autopilot. They respond to sequence. Miss that sequence, and even foods known for strong bones can quietly fail. That's why bone loss often feels sudden, even though it has been building silently in the background for years. Many seniors say, "I was fine and then suddenly I wasn't." But was it really sudden? Or was bone loss progressing without symptoms until the signal became too weak to ignore? And here's a question few people ever stop to ask. What if the foods you eat every day are only preparing your bones, but never activating true bone rebuilding? As we age, digestion changes, hormone signals shift, and bone cells become far more selective about what they respond to. Strategies that supported bone health in your 40s may now send weaker messages, or no message at all. Bones don't complain or warn you. They adapt quietly to whatever signals they receive. When those signals are incomplete, bone density adapts downward. When the message is clear and complete, bones can respond upward again, even later in life. So what actually happens when the message finally makes sense to aging bone tissue? In this video, you'll discover why some foods for bone health quietly fail when used alone, why others only work when they come later, and why rebuilding bone strength after 60 depends less on doing more, and more on doing things in the right order. As we begin the countdown, pay close attention, because the first steps may seem unimpressive at first. Yet skipping them could silently cancel out everything that follows. And once you understand why, you'll never look at bone health after 60 the same way again. Bone loss after 60 isn't just about fractures, and that's exactly what makes it so dangerous. It progresses quietly, often without pain, without warning, and without obvious symptoms that tell you something is wrong. While many people focus on the risk of falls, the deeper threat lies in what weakened bones begin to signal to the rest of the body. Balance slowly declines, posture subtly shifts, muscles start compensating in ways they were never designed to, and stress spreads to the spine, hips, and even breathing mechanics. This chain reaction doesn't happen overnight, which is why it's so often missed until it feels sudden. And here's the question most people never stop to ask. What if bone loss after 60 begins long before you feel anything is wrong, long before you would ever think to check? But here's the good news, and this is where the story changes direction. Bones are not dead structures. Even after 60, they remain metabolically active and responsive to what's happening inside your body. Research in aging physiology shows that bone tissue can still adapt and regain strength when the right biological conditions are restored. The real problem isn't that rebuilding shuts down forever. It's that the body often stops sending clear, coordinated signals that bones can respond to. And that raises a powerful question worth pausing on. If aging bones are still listening, what actually happens when they finally hear a message they understand again? This is where hope becomes practical instead of abstract. Instead of relying on a single nutrient or repeating the same habit year after year, Evidence suggests that bone strength after 60 depends on a specific sequence of signals. Digestion needs support first. Absorption must follow. Activation comes next. Only after that does true structural reinforcement begin. When those signals arrive out of order, bones hesitate and hold back. When they arrive in the right order, bones respond decisively. This explains why so many seniors feel frustrated doing everything right without seeing results. They weren't wrong. They were just early, late, or out of sequence. Could it be that the issue was never effort, but timing all along? As we age, digestion changes, hormone signaling shifts, and cells become far more selective about what they respond to. Strategies that supported bone health in your 40s may now send weaker messages or no message at all. Bones don't complain or warn you when this happens. They adapt quietly to whatever signals they receive. When signals are incomplete, bone density adapts downward. When signals are clear and complete, bones can respond upward again, even later in life. And this raises one more important question. What changes when bones finally stop guessing and start responding with confidence? In this video, you'll discover how to interrupt that silent downward spiral and replace it with a clear, biologically meaningful signal your bones can finally act on. You'll learn why some foods for bone health only prepare the ground, why others activate long dormant pathways, and why timing matters more now than it did decades ago. And as we move into the next section, pay close attention, because the very first step in rebuilding bone strength after 60 isn't what most people expect, and skipping it may quietly undo everything that comes after. According to Harvard researchers studying aging and bone metabolism, bone tissue remains biologically active far longer than most people assume, even well into later decades of life. In simple terms, your bones are not dead material that only wears out over time. They are living systems that constantly decide whether to rebuild bone strength or allow bone density loss. This decision-making process continues every single day, even after 60. That's why so many adults are shocked when bone loss appears on a scan despite years of eating well, staying active, and genuinely doing the right things. But here's the question most people never stop to ask. If bones are still active after 60, why do they sometimes choose not to rebuild? A growing body of research now shows that bones don't respond to nutrients the same way they did at 30 or 40. In everyday language, the body becomes more selective with age. It no longer reacts to vague signals or random nutritional support. It waits for clarity, consistency, and timing. This helps explain why many seniors feel frustrated when supplements or foods for bone health seem to stop working over time. The nutrients may still be there, but the message they send is weaker or incomplete. So is bone loss after 60 really about what you're consuming? Or is it about how your body is interpreting the message right now? Scientists also know that bone cells are in constant communication with digestion, hormones, muscles, and inflammation levels. Put simply, bones rebuild when the body feels safe, nourished, and clearly signaled, not when it's confused, stressed, or overloaded. That's why someone can eat well, sleep well, and still feel weaker year after year without understanding why bone strength keeps declining. And here's the part rarely explained in doctors' offices. When bones don't recognize the signal they're receiving, they don't resist or warn you. They quietly adapt downward. Density decreases, structure thins, and resilience fades without obvious symptoms. So what actually changes when that signal finally becomes clear again? Clinical observations suggest that rebuilding bone strength later in life depends on restoring communication, not forcing results. In plain terms, bones need the right conversation, not louder instructions or more supplements added at random. This is why timing, combinations, and order matter far more after 60 than sheer quantity ever did. Adding more calcium, more pills, or more bone foods doesn't help if the message arrives out of sequence. In fact, it can sometimes create more confusion inside the system. But when signals arrive in the right order, when digestion is supported, absorption improves, inflammation calms, and muscles send consistent feedback, bones respond differently, often more quickly than people expect. This is the moment where rebuilding becomes possible again, not because you're doing more, but because the body finally understands what you're asking it to do. And keep this in mind as we move forward, because once you understand how aging bones actually listen, the next part of this video will suddenly make sense in a completely new way. What you're about to hear isn't about pushing harder. It's about finally speaking the language your bones have been waiting for all along. Now let's count down the foods that influence bone strength after 60, starting with the quietest signal and moving step by step toward the one that delivers the clearest rebuilding message. Pay close attention to the order, because with aging bones, sequence often matters more than effort, and many people stop too early without realizing their bones were still waiting. The early steps may seem modest, but skipping them quietly changes everything. Bone loss after 60 rarely happens because people do nothing. It happens because the right signals arrive at the wrong time. So which signal actually needs to come first? Number 10. Oats. A calm start, not a build signal. Oats work indirectly, yet they matter because bone health after 60 is closely tied to metabolic stability. By stabilizing blood sugar and lowering low-grade inflammation, oats reduce stress signals that interfere with mineral retention. When metabolism is calmer, calcium and magnesium are less likely to be wasted. A small bowl in the morning, ideally paired with protein, is enough. For adults over 60, the key caution is assuming oats rebuild bone on their own. They don't. Oats prepare the environment so later steps can work. The result is preparation, not construction. What happens if preparation never turns into action? This is where many people get stuck. They eat healthier, feel slightly better, and assume bone density is improving. But bones don't rebuild just because breakfast improved. Oats calm the system. They level the ground. Once the ground is level, bones can finally respond. So what's the next message aging bones need to hear? Number 9. Eggs. Reconnecting. Muscle and bone. Eggs support bone strength by reinforcing the muscle-bone communication loop through protein, vitamin D, and phosphorus. Bones respond to mechanical demand. When muscles stabilize the body, they send signals telling bones they are still needed. After 60, reduced activity can quietly weaken that message. 1 egg a day is usually sufficient, especially earlier in the day. If cholesterol is a concern, balance matters more than elimination. For many adults over 60, the result isn't denser bone yet, but a stronger signal that slows further loss. But is slowing enough to protect you long-term? Slowing decline helps, but it's not the same as rebuilding strength. Eggs keep bones informed that the body is still active. Many seniors notice better steadiness when protein intake becomes consistent. Still, communication alone doesn't rebuild structure. Bones may hear the message to stay, but they still need help using available materials. So once bones are listening, what helps them act? Number 8. Yogurt. Making calcium usable. Yogurt improves calcium handling by combining absorbable calcium with protein that supports tissue repair. This pairing matters because calcium alone often isn't enough after 60. Fermentation supports digestion, which weakens with age, making absorption less reliable. A small serving a few times per week is enough. Those sensitive to dairy should watch tolerance. The result is minerals arriving in a form bones recognize. But recognition alone doesn't guarantee action. So what's still missing? This is where frustration sets in. People add calcium-rich foods and still see no improvement. The issue isn't effort, it's usability. Yogurt improves delivery, helping nutrients arrive ready for repair. Yet even usable materials need organization. Bones still require internal order. So what provides that structure? Number 7. Almonds. Organizing the materials. Almonds provide magnesium, a mineral bones rely on to organize calcium once it enters the body. Without magnesium, calcium may circulate without locking into bone, which explains why some adults with decent calcium intake still lose density. Magnesium supports enzyme systems that guide mineral placement and helps bones coordinate what they already have. A small handful several times per week works well. For adults over 60 with kidney concerns, portion size matters. The result is better mineral coordination, a subtle but essential shift. But coordination still isn't commitment, and bones know the difference. At this point, the foundation is calm. Muscles are signaling. minerals are usable, and materials are organized. Bones are no longer confused, but they're still waiting for activation. Organization sets the stage, but it doesn't flip the switch. So what finally activates the proteins that lock minerals into bone tissue and tell aging bones, now is the moment to rebuild? Number 6. Spinach. Activating bone signals. Spinach marks a critical turning point in bone health after 60 because it helps activate the signals bones need to actually respond. It delivers vitamin K and magnesium, nutrients that switch on specific proteins responsible for binding calcium and other minerals directly into bone tissue. Before this point, bones may receive nutrients passively, but they don't yet act on them. This is often where bones move from simply receiving to actively responding. Lightly cooked spinach once or twice a week is enough to trigger this effect without overwhelming digestion. For adults over 60 using blood thinners, consistency matters more than quantity because sudden changes can disrupt medication balance. The result is clearer internal signaling, something aging bones depend on, more than sheer nutrient volume. And once those signals turn on, changes may begin quietly, but they tend to be decisive. The real question is, once bones start responding, how do you give them something worth responding to? Many people notice subtle shifts here: slightly better balance, less stiffness, or more confidence when standing or walking. These changes are easy to dismiss, but they're often the first signs that bone communication has been restored. Spinach doesn't build bone structure on its own, but it tells bones that the system is ready. Without this step, stronger materials may arrive too early and go unused. With it, bones finally begin listening, and once bones are listening, the next step becomes far more powerful. Number 5. Sardines. True structural input. Sardines are where bone rebuilding starts to feel real. They supply calcium, thiam, vitamin D, and phosphorus in a naturally balanced form, including calcium from soft, edible bones that the body recognizes easily. This matters after 60 because calcium absorption often declines while vitamin D levels drop quietly. Sardines deliver both together, reducing guesswork for aging bone tissue. 1 or 2 servings per week are sufficient for most adults, with attention paid to sodium intake. For many people over 60, this is the first stage where structural reinforcement truly begins, not just preparation or signaling, but real material entering bone tissue. At this point, bones are no longer guessing. They have direction, activation, and now usable building blocks. Some people notice improved posture stability or less fear of sudden movement. Others simply feel more grounded. But here's the question that naturally follows. Once structure begins forming, how do you keep it from becoming brittle or incomplete? Strong bones aren't just dense, they're resilient, and resilience requires a framework. This is where many people stop too soon, assuming the hardest part is over. But structure without flexibility can backfire. Bones need support beneath the surface, not just minerals on top. That's where the next step becomes essential. Number 4. Bone broth. Building the framework. Bone broth provides collagen and amino acids that form the flexible framework minerals need before hardening into strong, resilient bone. Without this internal scaffold, bones may become dense but fragile, strong on paper, weak in real life. Collagen acts like rebar inside concrete, allowing bones to absorb impact instead of cracking under pressure. A warm cup of bone broth several times per week works best, especially earlier in the day when digestion is more responsive. Store-bought versions can be high in sodium, so moderation and label awareness matter. For adults over 60, this step often explains a long-standing mystery: why bone density can improve on scans, yet fracture risk remains. Bone broth supports the part of bone health that doesn't always show up on numbers, but shows up in daily movement, balance, and confidence. The result is a stronger internal scaffold that allows minerals to settle correctly and stay put. But even the best framework needs steady reinforcement to last. And here's where everything starts coming together. Once signals are activated, structure is forming, and a framework is in place, bones are no longer waiting. They're preparing for something bigger. What comes next determines whether this progress stabilizes or accelerates. Number 3. Lentils. Sustaining the matrix. Lentils play a quietly powerful role in bone health after 60 because they help sustain the bone matrix once rebuilding has already begun. They provide plant-based protein along with magnesium and phosphorus, nutrients bones rely on to keep newly formed structure stable between rebuilding phases. But their role goes deeper than minerals alone. Lentils help stabilize blood sugar and energy levels, which reduces cortisol and other stress signals that silently push bones toward breakdown. This matters more with aging because bones after 60 are highly sensitive to metabolic stress. For most adults, a few servings per week are enough, adjusted for digestion and comfort. When this support is consistent, bones don't lose momentum. They stay engaged instead of slipping backward. And here's the question many people never ask. What happens when bones finally stop losing ground and start holding their position day after day? At this stage, many people notice something subtle but important. Energy feels steadier. Recovery feels easier. That's not a coincidence. Bones don't rebuild in isolation. They respond to the entire internal environment. When lentils calm that environment, they quietly protect the progress already made. Without this step, rebuilding can start strong and then fade. With it, the signal stays alive. And that raises a critical point as we move closer to the top. Sustaining strength is just as important as creating it. Number 2, salmon, turning signals. On salmon is the point where bone rebuilding signals become impossible for the body to ignore. Rich in vitamin D, omega-3 fatty acids, and high-quality protein, salmon improves calcium absorption while simultaneously calming inflammatory pathways that quietly encourage bone breakdown. This dual effect is especially important after 60 because many adults absorb calcium less efficiently at the same time low-grade inflammation steadily rises with age. Salmon helps correct both problems at once, which is why its impact feels different from earlier steps. 2 servings per week are ideal for most adults, with medication interactions and individual needs taken into account. At this stage in the sequence, the change is rarely subtle. Cellular coordination improves. Bone cells become more responsive. Communication between digestion, hormones, muscles, and bone tissue sharpens. In simple terms, bones stop hesitating. They finally recognize that the signal they've been waiting for is real and consistent. Many people describe this phase as a clear turning point. Less stiffness in the morning, better balance when standing or walking, and more confidence in everyday movement. These shifts may seem small at first, but they signal something important happening beneath the surface. And here's the key question that matters most right now. Once the signal is finally loud enough, what keeps bones from slipping back into hesitation? This is where many people unknowingly make a mistake. They feel improvement and assume the job is finished, but biological signals without reinforcement can fade. Bones may respond, but only temporarily, if the message isn't completed. Without a final confirmation, bone cells may treat the improvement as short-term and quietly scale back again. So what actually completes the message and tells bones this change isn't temporary, that rebuilding is allowed to last? Number 1, cheese, the final reinforcement. Cheese delivers concentrated calcium, protein, and phosphorus at the precise moment bones are finally ready to use them. Earlier in the sequence, these same nutrients may have arrived too soon or without clear direction. Now, digestion is supported, absorption is improved, inflammation is calmer, and bone cells are fully attentive. In this context, cheese provides the final reinforcement that turns response into commitment. Small, regular portions work best, with careful attention to sodium and overall balance, especially after 60. The surprising result isn't just stronger bones, it's biological permission. Bones stop adapting downward. They stop waiting. They stop hesitating. Instead, they reinforce what has already been built and begin protecting it. This is why so many people struggle when they jump straight to calcium-rich foods without preparing the groundwork. The materials were never the real issue. Timing was. Without preparation and activation, calcium arrives as noise. With the right sequence, it arrives as a clear instruction. And once that permission is given, everything that came before suddenly makes sense. The early steps that felt unimpressive were essential. The middle steps that felt subtle were decisive. And this final step confirms the entire process. That realization alone changes how people think about bone health after 60, not as a losing battle, but as a system that simply needed the right message, in the right order. And now that you've seen how order changes everything, from sustaining the matrix, to turning signals on, to final reinforcement, the next section will bring these pieces together into a clear, simple routine you can realistically follow. Because knowing what comes first matters, but understanding how these steps work together is what finally turns support into lasting bone strength after 60. If you've been feeling tired, worried about balance, or unsure what actually helps after 60, you're not alone. The good news is, your body can still respond and regain strength at any age when it's supported the right way. Share in the comments how old you are and what health goal matters most to you right now. Because your experience may be exactly what another person watching today needs to hear. And in just a moment, we'll connect these steps into a clear, simple routine that finally brings everything together. Before making major diet changes or adding new foods regularly, it's always wise to check with your doctor, especially after 60. Remember, your body still has a remarkable ability to adapt and strengthen at any age when changes are made thoughtfully and safely. If this video helped you, please like it and share it with someone who could use this encouragement today, because the next small step you take might matter more than you realize.